So if you look at a lot of people social dancing, especially like modern or fusion bachata, they don't really stay in frame very long. They'll do like half a basic step maybe, and then they open up and start doing all sorts of like turn
Mm,
patterns and things like that, which is fine. But I think people forget that in open hand hold, we still have to have a frame. There's still a connection and a
yeah.
tension that we should be feeling. So like teachers will use the terms like noodle arms a lot when like there's absolutely no connection.
Exactly. Right. Right. Right.
That leads the leader to like really throw the phone.
Mama za kungi betengo we kumoyi ingumada takana okyo sokinu kibangase Manuele ngando mushisamye Manuele Manuele.
Hey everyone. On today's episode of Two Feet Podcast, we had on the mesmerizing and incredibly talented Miss Kat Arias, who is the owner and managing director of Ferocity Dance Company. She was born in Venezuela, currently lives in Virginia, man. Ferocity Dance Company is an absolutely stunning bachata dance team. She's doing some amazing, absolutely incredible things for the bachata community in Virginia, man. I love her bachata. She also does like ballroom. She branches out in different styles, but I believe she's mostly known for her bachata, man. In this episode, we talk about her childhood in Venezuela. She just started dancing since she was like 23 years old, you know. So she truly has an understanding and passion for the beginner stage, man. So we talk about her beginner stage, hints and tips on how to improve your bachata. Great episode. Let's jump right into it.
Hey, all right. So I am now on the line with a Miss Kat Audius, who is the owner and managing director of Ferocity Dance Company, which you founded back in 2012. Is that right?
Yes.
Sure enough. So, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, you were born in La Guajira,
La
Venezuela?
Guaira,
La,
Venezuela.
Gua- La Guaira, Venezuela, but you
Yes.
currently live in Vienna, Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sure enough. Sure enough. I believe you started dancing and started Latin dancing back at 23, and you started with Ballroom.
Yes.
And then yeah, at 25, you became the owner of Elan DanceSport. Is that right?
Yeah, it was the Elan Dance Sports Center.
Okay, so no, yeah, yeah. So how are you doing today, Kat?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very swell. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Thank you for
So
having
of course, I'm very curious. I've never been to Venezuela, so please tell me, what was it like growing up in La Guardia?
me. It was great. Back when I was younger, it was before everything got really violent. So it was really like freeing. I mean, like I was in kindergarten walking multiple miles to and from school by myself. It was not an issue. It's a rainforest, so you see beautiful like animals, sloths, like beautiful birds everywhere. We live up in the mountains, so it's really really pretty. The people are really great and really kind. So all of my mom's side of the family is there.
Okay, that's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm curious. I guess did you grow up in a dancing household or like a music household at all?
I mean, music has always been a part of it. My family always sang, although not well. But dancing, yeah, we're not. No one in the family dances on either side.
Ooh, so let me ask you this then: is dancing, I guess, a part of the culture in Venezuela? Is it a big part of the culture? Or just not really.
It's a big part of the culture. It's just my family specifically, just rhythmically challenged, I guess.
Okay, sure, I definitely understand that. See, you're growing up in Venezuela and everything. I'm curious. What were some of your hobbies as a child?
I just like to play with my friends. We left when I was pretty young, so for me, it was my whole family was like my cousins, my family, and then my like friends from school. So it was school or home and just playing. And then my dad brought me over when I was 6.
Okay, okay, you were sick. So yeah, please tell me then. I guess what made your family transition to America.
So my dad actually is originally from Peru, and he became a vet. And so then from there he went to Venezuela, just trying to find, new opportunities. But for him, his dream was always to come to the United States,
Okay.
because he wanted a better life and better opportunities. I'm his third child. He had a previous daughter and son from a previous marriage. So when I was born, I think he just really wanted to like try to give me a better opportunity that he couldn't give his other children. So he came over by himself. So for the first few years of my life, I did not see my dad very often as he was in the United States. And then when he was able to establish himself a little bit here, he went ahead and brought my mom and I over.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm very curious to hear. I guess going back to when you were 6, do you remember, what that transition like was from going from Venezuela to America? What was that like?
It was hard because my family is really close. It's a really big family, but it's a lot of women in our family, and we're just like super emotional people. And people in my family don't leave. That's not a thing that they
Okay.
do. So like when you're there in Venezuela, like until things got really really bad, you just stay there. Like everyone lives there, and like you visit your family, or you live with your family. And so for us to leave, and my mom was the oldest daughter, that was like a really hard hit for them. Like my mom had never left the country, had never been on a plane,
Mm,
and none of them, most of my family still hasn't been on a plane. So I remember
okay.
like there was just lots of crying, but like for me, like I was sad to leave them, but I was also really happy to go see my dad.
Mm, I definitely understand that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What did you come to when you moved to America?
We've always been in Virginia.
Okay,
So yeah,
okay.
always been
Yeah.
Northern Virginia. This is where my dad, ended up settling down.
Okay. And so tell me, what was that like? What was it like, growing up in Virginia?
It was it was a culture shock. I mean, it's very different coming from somewhere like Venezuela where like sometimes the water doesn't run and you have to take a shower by using like a
Okay.
to come in here, and like the streets are big and there's no mountains and there's no animals and it's different weather. Like I remember the first time it snowed, I like couldn't believe that I was real. But it was different. The people were different. I remember being so young, I just remember being like, wow, like the kids are different. Some of these kids were mean, and I was like not used to that.
Okay, yeah, I definitely understand that. Did you speak English at that time, or did you have to learn?
I had to learn. So I
Okay.
came in and I think I started in the summer. So I did like an ESL program.
Mm,
But then when I started like regular school, like I picked it up pretty quickly. Obviously, I still had a bit of an accent, but some of the kids were mean. And I was
of
like, wow,
course.
like I never had experienced that because in Venezuela, everyone's the same. Everyone speaks the same language. Like you don't have a lot of foreigners and stuff. So it was definitely like a little bit of a culture shock.
Of course. And do you think that's just because I guess you were the new person and you were different? Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
I mean, it went away pretty quickly. It was just like kind of like that first like 1 or 2 months. But
Okay.
after that, yeah, it was fine. I
Okay.
really enjoyed school, so I kind of tried to go find the teachers more than the students until I got more comfortable.
Okay, so I definitely understand that. I'm very curious, to know you might not even remember this, but I guess how was living in Virginia for your mother? Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, like it's still now it's hard.
For her?
She's always told me this has never felt like home for her.
Really?
Home for her is Venezuela because like I was 6, but my mom was like 30.
Exactly.
She and her plans never included her leaving Venezuela.
Mm.
My dad was the one that kind of always had the vision to leave, and ultimately we're very lucky that we did because who could have foreseen what has happened with the country now?
Right, right, right.
But she feels like a bit of an outcast here.
Okay, I'm curious. Have you I guess since moving to Virginia, have you and your family have you visited back at all? Or your mother been back at all?
Yeah, I we used to go back like every other year. The last
Okay.
time that I went, I think I was 22 maybe.
Okay.
I went to give my grandmother a copy of my college diploma.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, my dad always
I,
wanted me to graduate, so then we got an extra copy, so we all went back to like give her a
oh
copy.
man, I know she was so happy to see that.
That was really nice.
That's so awesome. So yeah, you moved to Virginia and you're growing up. I guess what what happens after high school? You said you go to college, right? Was that always your dream, or did you have something else planned maybe?
It was always the plan, so like obviously, my dad wanting a better opportunity for us had everything to do with me being able to go to school and go to college and get a degree and have like a better future. But very early on they started noticing that like I wasn't going to be a doctor or a scientist or anything like that. I was always very much into the arts
Okay.
ever since I was little. So when I started like really being able to look at colleges, I was looking into like fine arts degrees and like graphic design and stuff, and that's ultimately what I ended up going for. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I did art and visual technology at George Mason for graphic design.
Okay. Sure. I went to I'm actually from Richmond, Virginia, so I know
Oh,
George Mason. Yeah,
nice.
I went to VCU, so yeah, I definitely know
Yeah,
George Mason.
I had some friends that went there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me, I guess tell me about your time at George Mason. What was that like for you?
It was interesting. My first year of college, I went to Fitchburg State College in Massachusetts. So that was like for me what I called my college experience
Yeah,
because
you
like I
out of
moved
state,
there.
right? Away
Yeah,
from the family.
yeah, I moved there and like all I had to do was go to school and all this stuff, but then I came back. Once I came back, for me, I went to Mason as a commuter. I think like once you go
Okay.
as a commuter,
It's
it
different.
loses something. It's very different because
I did
it's
the
almost
same
like
thing. Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
like
I did the same
school,
thing.
it was a nice school. While I was there, that whole like big basketball thing happened, so that was cool to see.
Yeah.
But it didn't really feel like that college experience. It just felt like, all right, this is a place that I have to go to,
Uh-huh.
just like work.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. I definitely understand that. So you go to George Mason and everything. I guess when did you or how did you get introduced to dancing? And actually, what made you even want to start that?
I always love dancing. Just like from movies or like cartoons and stuff, and specifically ballroom dancing. I love the big, beautiful dresses and like the shiny stuff, and I love the music, and I just always wanted to do it. But I've been overweight most of my life, so anytime I would say something, like the usual response is like, "That's like not for somebody like me." And
Okay.
so I just kind of grew up wanting to do this, but when I turned 15, my parents decided to give me a quinceañera back home, and they
Hey.
told me I couldn't shame them by not being able to dance at home. So they got me some dance lessons, and that was like the first time that I ever got to do anything like that, and I loved it, and I picked it up
Hey.
really, really quickly. And actually, I took lessons with uh, there's a local dancer here named Patricio Lizaraga, and it was his father actually that owned the Latin Dancer Studio who like taught me for my quince. And it was like the first person ever. Like one day I was randomly doing some steps. He was like teaching me Argentine tango, and he like walked away. And like while he was away, I tried to figure out the guy's part just for
Okay.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Saw me, and he was the first person to ever believe in me. I mean, he walked right over to my mom and he told her, he was like, she needs to dance.
Hey.
He was like, she's got something. And it was like no one had ever said that to me before. So it was like I always remember that. I always remember his father. He's passed away now, but he was great. And like I just never ever forget how he made me feel just by watching me just fool around for like a couple seconds.
Okay. That's really amazing because I've talked to other dancers and I remember one in particular. She told me that the reason why it took her so long to start dancing was because that she took this dance class as a child and the teacher was just very mean to her. It kind of deterred her from it, and
I
so
mean,
it's just so
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, teachers have a big part in your dream.
Influence, of course, yeah,
They can either inspire you to try to make them come true, or they can crush them. I mean,
exactly,
you
yeah,
you look towards them for guidance. You trust
yeah.
them, you believe in them.
It was literally like this one instance, this one single act that she did that shaped this person's life. She eventually, thankfully, she eventually fell in love with dancing again. But it's just so crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely understand that. So yeah, you practice for your quinceanera and you fall in love with it. So do you start dancing after that, or like what happens after your
No,
quinceanera?
because dancing's expensive and ballroom
Okay, but
specifically.
I know ballroom can be yes.
So, I just kind of like I loved it, and then I just kind of like held on to this love for it. But
Hey,
we continue with the plan, to go to school for like graphic design and stuff. And my parents just always thought like, even if you end up doing something else, it's really important to have a base. And they wanted me to have that structure and like go to school. And also like, like I couldn't be selfish. Like that was a big part of their dream for
of
me.
course,
So I
yeah.
wanted to do that for them. But then like sometime when I was in college, or maybe when it was like right as I was getting out, that movie came out with J Lo, Shall We Dance?
Okay.
And I
Sure
went with
enough.
my mom. We come out, and the movie has like a happy ending, and I was crying.
Oh wow.
Like, what's wrong with you? And I just told her. I mean, I told her, it was like probably the first time I said it really seriously. I was like, I want to dance.
Hey.
And I was just like, I told her, I was like, and I feel like I can't. And it was like I was so like depressed when I watched that movie because I was like, man, like that's everything that I want. Like I want to teach and I want to like perform and I want to compete and like, but I just like didn't have that confidence and I didn't even
Okay.
start. You know, like when you want to do something like that as an adult, it's really hard. I was
Of
an adult
course.
when I started.
And yet to be a beginner at something?
Yeah, it's just when you're a kid, you're fearless, you know. But
Right.
every year that you get older, you get like more and more self-conscious or more and more fears. So
Yes.
like for me, I didn't even know where to start. I was like, I don't even know how to find a studio. Like this is way before like, you know, Google and YouTube and all
Okay.
was a big thing. Like you had to like look at like yellow pages or like pass by a place on the street
Exactly.
and ultimately, it was a job listing. That's how I even started. Like, I saw a job for a part time receptionist at a dance studio.
Hey.
I went and they liked me, but the big perk was free dance classes.
Hey.
And so I went and I was like overwhelmed. Like, when
Hey.
I actually got there, I was like, oh my God, like, I am psychotic. And I was so intimidated that I worked for a whole year and didn't take a single class.
Oh
I
wow.
was just like staring at people. I would hide at my desk. I was like, oh my God, I hope these people don't say hi to me. Like they were just amazing. Like I didn't understand what people were doing. So I just looked at everyone and to me, everyone looked pro.
Okay.
And I was like, there's no way that like someone like me that doesn't even know like what a basic step in any dance is gonna be able to like fit in here.
Mm.
After a year, they took me to like a ballroom competition. That was it. I saw it. I was like, that's what I want. And like, I called the teacher that is actually now my best friend and my coach for the last like 10 plus years. I called him because I saw him and I was like, I want to do that. And he was like, okay. And I was like, oh man, what did I just do? But like, that was it. It was like, I saw something and I was like, dude, like, it just clicked. I was like, if I keep on waiting, I'm never going to do
Come
it.
on. Speak on it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
I want a toy truck. What? But Santa Claus. Oh, hold on one second, Santa Claus. Hold be right back. Hey, if you could leave a like and subscribe for the show, that would be amazing. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. Maybe for someone who might be in a similar position like you. Maybe someone who is scared to start their journey on something they might truly love. What advice could you maybe give them to help push them over the edge?
The best thing I can do is you have to just go. The first step is the hardest. The very first class, that very first like 5 minutes of your first class are going to be the hardest because you're going to be like full of anxiety and super nervous, but it goes away so quickly. Like, it's not even a matter of surviving the first class. You just have to like get into the class and survive the first like 2 minutes. Because if
Okay.
you like it, you're gonna like it right away. And like by
Yeah.
the end of the class, you're gonna have such a good time that you're gonna end up wondering why didn't I do it before? You know, and like and realistically too, I think is like most of us get hung up on thinking of, oh man, like people are gonna look at me like I'm stupid or people are gonna like make fun of me. People don't care. Like and
Okay.
that's a big thing like that
And
I
they're concerned with their own things, right?
yeah, like no, like you go to a class and nobody's sitting there judging you. Like everyone is there probably just as nervous
Judging
as you are,
and judging
especially
themselves, probably, right?
yeah, especially in a beginner class. When I'm like, and I wish someone had been around in my head to like smack me around a little bit and be like, listen, literally they don't care about you. Like everyone is there focusing on themselves. Like just
Right.
have fun on your own journey.
Yeah.
And that first step, once you take it, that's it. Cooked.
Hey, so tell me this thing. I'm very interested to hear. Tell me about your beginner stage in ballroom. What was that like?
It was great. Once I finally got the courage to like take privates, I took every single possible class that I could, and I was like psychotic. So I changed my whole life within like 48 hours. I took a bunch of group classes. I loved them. I realized that I had a lot of work to do because I ended up signing up for like intermediate classes by accident, and I didn't realize
Wow.
I showed up, and like the Russian teacher starts calling things out by names, and I'm like what's happening? And then I was too
Right,
embarrassed
right.
to like leave, so I was like, no, I'm gonna like stay here. Um, and so I literally like I stopped hanging out with all my friends. Like I stopped going to happy hours. I stopped going clubbing. I stopped partying. It was like an overnight thing. I
Okay.
instantly went from one life to another, and I was at the studio practicing 40 hours a week. So I
That's
would go to
second,
class.
said second time job or what?
Yeah, I mean, I basically like, and I would wait for people to leave, and once the studio was kind of empty, I would start practicing and like lock myself in, and then on the weekends I would practice during my shift because people weren't really there on the weekend, and like just anything. If all I learned was a basic step, I just did that for 40 hours over and over again. Like I just couldn't get enough of it. So like when
Okay.
it started for me, it was like my mom was like, calm it down. And I was like, no,
Okay.
I love it. But like, I just spent all my time there. I basically exchanged my entire life for a whole different one.
Okay. So did you start in ballroom or was it partner dance or
Ballroom. So
okay.
ballroom. I mainly always I've only done partner dancing. I mean, when I was in high school, I did like a little bit of hip hop and stuff, but not like anything crazy. But ballroom, all of ballroom for the dances that I do is partner dance.
Okay.
So I was always I didn't have a partner, but I had my teacher. So my focus was to do pro am. So I was the amateur and he was my professional, and he would create routines for me, and we would like perform shows or do competitions together.
Okay, that's showing up. Showing up. Okay, I definitely understand that. So yeah, so you're you've become heavily involved, deep passion for ballroom and everything, and you're practicing, getting better. Do you start to compete, or what happens?
Yeah, so I competed a couple times as an amateur, and then we did a lot of showcases, which is kind of like just showcase routines. So they're like 2 to 3 minute pieces, and that was like a lot of fun. But like, and I just graduated college and stuff, and I think I was also just trying to figure out like who I am. But through dancing, my I completely changed. I used to be really, really quiet and like
Okay.
super shy, and like I told you, I used to hide behind the desk, and through dancing, I found my confidence and I found
Definitely.
a different kind of self esteem based on like what I could do, like dance wise. And so from there, like I just became very, very different. Like, and somewhere like the 2 to 3 year mark, I remember telling my teacher, I was like, man, like I would love to teach one day.
Okay. And so I want to say this first. I definitely understand what you mean when you say about how dance gave you confidence because I started dancing salsa about 8 years ago, 7 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and that's like one of the instant benefits that I've gained from it. It's just a benefit of confidence, increasing confidence.
For sure.
Oh yes, I definitely understand that. So so you said you wanted to start teaching,
Mhm.
and
Told them like
oh,
one day I would like to. Like,
okay, sure enough, okay, yeah, okay. So you said you're doing the professional amateur competitions. Tell me tell me about tell me about your competitions. Were you How did you fight the nerves? And I imagine you were anxious.
I was horrible. I only did like one real competition like in my category, and I definitely let myself get psyched out by the other dancers that
Okay.
clearly been doing it longer than me and stuff. And like it was like the one time, and like I learned a lot from there because I focused on everybody else. I didn't have a good
Oh,
like I didn't have a good time. Like I should have just like enjoyed my being able to be there and dance and just enjoy it and like whatever. But
yeah.
I let myself focus too much on like the actual competition aspect of it and just focus on other people and assume that they're better than me. And so like I always remember that. And it was sad because it ended up being like my last competition for a while, but I learned a lot from it. So the way that I am now, especially with competitions, stem a lot from that experience and just me being like, man, like I should have just been able to have a good time and I didn't, and it's just, it's good to compete. But for me personally, like if I make it about the competition itself, like it almost loses something for me
Mm.
instead of just being like really just honored and blessed to have the chance to even be there.
So let me ask you this then. I guess when you're in preparation for if you're maybe going to compete now as versus then, what what could you have done differently? Is it just not focus on everyone else? What did you
Yeah.
learn from that?
It really was just, it happened that day. Like everything was good before. I was super excited. And then I get there, and then like here come these girls. So, like in pro am competitions, the pros don't get judged, it's only the amateurs. So I looked at the girls
Oh,
coming up, and they're like, their costumes were like 2 or 3 times more expensive than mine. Like they had like
okay.
tons of stones, and they were like beautiful. And some of these girls you could tell were either gymnasts or ballet dancers. And like I let myself get hung up on basically, it's like self-esteem issues is what it comes down to. I let myself get away from the actual dancing.
Okay.
I ended up being okay like later on. Like I had like a good time, but I feel like I could have probably just had a great time if I didn't focus on like that stuff.
Okay, I definitely understand that. I definitely do. You're competing. I'm curious, when or how did you get introduced to salsa? How did that, or I guess the Latin scene, how did that come about then?
So the studio that we were in actually used to host a monthly, like huge salsa party. Like they would get like 300 to 400 people. It was like a really big studio, and that was the first time I saw salsa. That salsa wasn't really like my thing, but I enjoyed the party because I liked the people. Because the people were different, obviously, than the ballroom people I was
Right,
seeing.
right, right. Of course.
And so like it was just really like a fun crowd. And I remember when I saw my first salsa team performance, it was Clavikazi when they had the pro team with Chaka Brown, and I was like,
Okay.
wow, like neon green and black outfits, like it was like it was super cool. But I remember being like, oh my god, they're amazing, and it was like Antonio Doza, like all these people like way back in the day, and it was like super cool. And later on I realized like how big of a deal it was that like I actually like worked at this place and I got to see all these people all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But the bachata thing happened by accident.
Speak on it, please.
So we had an instructor at the studio that he had started a team, and most of his team were like local college students. So they didn't have a lot of money and they needed a place to practice. And so I told them, I was like, well, like, we have a showcase coming up. If you're willing to call them like, the Elan formation team for the showcase, then they can practice for free. So they ended up always practicing when I was there. And
Oh,
so like him and I became good friends, and then he would just ask me for help, like, oh, can you help the girls with styling? Can you help the girls with here? And it went from like 1 or 2 minutes here and there to like 15 minutes to then 30 minutes to then like every single week. And then like all of a sudden, like I started like co-directing this team.
oh
And
wow.
and I mean it was completely by accident. I was definitely was full on like ballroom girl.
Okay,
And
still okay.
sudden, yeah, I mean like I always liked bachata, but not like that. And all of
Okay.
a sudden, like it crept up.
So tell me about I guess your beginner stage in bachata. Were you who was teaching you at that time? Were you just tell me about that. Tell me all about that.
I mean, it was him. So his name is Brian Lee. So he still directs that team. The team is called Dance to Beat.
Okay.
Uh, and so, I mean, he was great. I mean, he taught me a lot of stuff. I started taking the group classes at the studio because they needed leads, and I'd never taken a bachata class like as a follow. They're like, we
Okay.
need leads. We need you to learn this part. That's how I even started leading it. Uh,
Okay.
and so. And then like when the little ballroom parties, we would have like they would play like one bachata song,
Nah.
merengue, and my best friend CJ would come, and I would always lead her through this stuff. So it was like fun. But yeah, a lot of the stuff in the beginning I learned just from Brian, just from practicing things with him, or he wanted to try like a turn pattern or try some footwork and see if something would work out, and just from like practicing together, I learned a lot.
Okay. Okay. Tell me, how did I guess how did learning to lead, how has that helped you? I guess looking back on, has it helped you at all?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I do now is lead. So like my style's a little different because I'm so heavy in a ballroom background. So for me, everything should be and has to be leadable, and you
Okay.
should be able to lead and follow. And so when I learned back then, I remember the follows telling me that it felt different with me, and I told them, well, I'm trying to lead you the way I would want it done for it to be clear. And I
Mm.
think that it's a perspective that when you're only a leader and maybe you've never followed, that it's a perspective that you don't get, because if you're only being taught how to do something but not how it feels, then you're missing 50% of the
Of
picture.
course, of course. Yeah, no, that's really true. That's definitely true. I think some of the best dancers I've met, both lead and follow. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
definitely understand that.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Could you maybe give me myself and others, maybe some tips or hints on how to become a better lead? Is there anything that you've seen, like maybe common errors?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, most of it is, I always tell my students that all that showy stuff that you see,
The
you have to think
performance,
of it.
right?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, or like even like the really intricate turn patterns or things like that, or really crazy body manipulations that people do social dancing. I said when things are done right, you have to think of it almost like well, like an onion or like anything that blooms out. I was like, so you're looking at the decoration, you're looking at the stuff that's on the outside that looks really, really cool. But at the core, everything has a pit, a root. And if you don't practice those roots, if you don't perfect your basics, if you don't
Right, right, right.
excel in that beginner stage, then everything else falls apart. Because in dancing, the beginner level of any dance is the biggest and most difficult because you're taking someone from zero and trying to get them all the way up to where they already understand technique and can just execute motions. So, like in ballroom, that'd be called like the bronze level. So, when you look at it visually, the bronze level in any dance is like this long. And then
Okay.
silver is like here. And
Even
then gold is
smaller.
here. They
It's
get
even
smaller
smaller.
and smaller. They only add like a couple of moves because once you know all of your bronze syllabus or most of your beginner stuff, now you have to become creative because the most advanced level is open gold. It means open choreography. It
Okay.
there you go off your route and now you have to be creative and see what can you come up with from that base. How do you decorate? How do you get here? But a lot of people start here. They only want
That
that.
flashy stuff, right? Or what?
Right. So when they look at it, whether they're trying to learn from YouTube or they see someone on the dance floor and they only want to learn that, they'll show up to a private lesson and they're like, I want to learn this move, which is something I won't do. If someone comes to me in a private lesson and they show me a video, like I very rarely will actually do that. Um,
Okay.
so I'll only do it if it was like a workshop that they actually took physically and they can't understand how to execute, and then I just help them with like leading points. But I
Mm.
don't keep stuff off of YouTube because like most of the time when they'll try to lead me through it, you can just tell there's a lack of tension. There's a big lack of frame. That's the number one thing is that
Frame
leaders
is huge. Frame is huge in any dance, right?
everything. And frame exists no matter what position you're in, unless you're fully disconnected. But if I'm one
Right.
arm, that's a frame. If we have two hand hold, there's a frame there. If we're
Yeah.
frame, it's there's a frame everywhere. And a lot of the leaders don't understand the responsibility of them carrying weight. So I get a lot of, sensual people want to do like sensual or like fusion and stuff like that, which is cool, and I love it and I do it. But I do spend a lot of time and a lot of repetition talking over like little things like where your hand is, what they feel, where do you hold their weight, anchoring your lats. So it's like understanding the human body. So like sensual works with the body. So the way that the body naturally works.
Right, right, right. It's
And
not
there's a lot,
forced or what?
yeah, I mean, like, and there's a lot of things being forced, like a lot of like head whips or like a lot of forced dips from people that don't know, like, to reinforce with the pelvis and what
And
that means, even.
that's how you hurt somebody, right?
Absolutely. And then, of course, that's how the whole genre gets a bad name.
Okay. Hey, that's so true. I don't want to forget either one of these, but I want to talk about frame definitely, but I want to speak about, the importance of, the basics, the fundamentals. A lot of people don't really want to do those things, right? Um, I guess how, and maybe just for you, with your dance company, how are you able to convey to people the importance of the basics, and meaning, for other teachers out there who really want to help the students get better and learn the basics, what can they do?
I think a lot of the responsibility, if someone's actually going to class, lies in the teacher. So like if you as a teacher you only focus on like what kind of cool pattern can I throw at my students today, they're not going to get that love for the basic or the understanding of why it's important. Um,
Okay.
so, like maybe you give them one flashy thing and you explain every single part of what goes into that one thing instead of giving someone in a 60-minute class eight counts of stuff,
Okay.
just sending them out into the world.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me ask you this: is the burden somewhat on the student as well? Because if you have two teachers and you see one teacher doing nothing but the flashy stuff, and another teacher focusing on the
Oh yeah,
basics,
absolutely. I think it's not
is that just the
the
dance
teacher,
community as a whole?
yeah, but I've seen that like we're really lucky in DC. We have a lot of really
Yeah,
great
DC's got an
teachers.
amazing dance scene.
And
DC's amazing.
you notice that like when the teachers love the basic and they stress the basics to their students also love and practice.
Okay, okay, okay.
And so I guess that's what I mean is like as a teacher, like we have a responsibility. Like if we love the basic and we take the time to talk about it, then our students are gonna love it and understand why it's important. Um,
Okay.
you know what I mean? And then
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
understand.
it is of course on the student because if you as a person don't care about the basics,
Right.
just want to be able to do all this cool stuff, it doesn't matter how good the teacher is. You're going to want to do what you want to do. You'll probably keep going until you find someone or a source like YouTube or something where you can get what you want.
And that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So for maybe a student looking for a teacher, would it be wise to maybe look for someone who stresses the fundamentals and not just the flashy stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of like that's kind of a hard answer. So for me, dancing was always super personal. So the most important part for me, I mean, I had already seen my current coach dancing. I knew I loved his style and stuff,
Mhm.
but for me, it's also like dancing is incredibly personal,
Yeah,
which means that
definitely.
we spend so much time with these people, even if you only see them once a week. You are like dedicating 1 hour of your week to this one person,
Hmm.
and so your personalities have to vibe.
So yeah, so meaning you just imagine with the teacher, having a good vibe with
Yeah,
the teacher.
it's almost like kind of like how you pick your friends too. Like,
That's it. It's a
do you
relationship,
vibe with
right?
this person? Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
take a few different classes. See number one, whose teaching style works for you,
So true.
but
So
also
true.
who you vibe with. Because sometimes maybe somebody's teaching style works really well for you, but you don't like their personality, and now you're clash. But
Yeah,
maybe someone else has a slightly different teaching style, but their personality makes you more receptive. So like it's really personal. Like
it
it's an
is.
individual thing. It's why I always tell people, I always thank my students that they chose me. It's because the students choose. We don't choose. They
Hmm.
choose who they
Yeah.
take classes with.
Who they want to give their money to, right? Who they want to spend their time with.
Yes.
So that's definitely true. That's actually a very important tip, or hint. Just find a teacher that suits you best, right?
Yes.
Sure
Because
enough,
that's how you learn the best.
of course, yeah, that's 100% correct. Um, tell me, well, I guess let's start with this. Speaking on frame, for both leads and follows, could you tell me, how one improves their frame? What are some practical things we can do to improve it, to practice it.
I mean, mainly it's you have to really practice the position of being in frame consistently. So if you look at a lot of people social dancing, especially like modern or fusion bachata, they don't really stay in frame very long. They'll do like half a basic set maybe, and then they open up and start doing all sorts of like turn
Mhm.
patterns and things like that, which is fine. But I think people forget that in open hand hold, we still have to have a frame. There's still a connection and a
Yeah,
tension that we should be feeling. So like teachers will use the terms like noodle arms a lot when like there's absolutely no connection.
exactly. Right,
Um,
right, right.
that leads the leader to like really throw the follows around and stuff. And it's from both parts. So if you're practicing with a partner, I always have my students like I'll have the follow make like a little beach ball, like a circle in front, and keep it. And I'll have the leaders put their arms around them, just the arms. And then I
Okay, okay.
that no matter what, that circle that she's created cannot get bigger or smaller. So that means that if you have a leader and he's a little heavy and he's trying to push down in the circle, then the follow has to be a little bit stronger to match the energy to keep the circle the same. And if it's a lighter lead, that means that the follow has to be lighter so that the circle doesn't get bigger. You know what I mean? And that's like one thing that you can do just to practice, like if it's with a partner. If it's on your own, I would really just practice like basic body stuff like standing up straight, putting your shoulders back. So, like, not like up, but back. So, like,
Okay.
back almost over your butt and like anchoring the lats. This is super, super important. If your lats aren't anchored down, then like you're actually not pushing down into the core. And I think of the core as going all the way around, not just in the stomach. It
Okay.
your back and everything. So if I feel your back and you're in frame, I should feel those lats pushing into your lower back, and then it makes like your arm range of motion with your arms is actually a little bit limited because now you're actually you can feel the weight of your body. So
Hmm.
like to be in good frame, you're leading with your whole body, not leading with your arms. Specifically to
Okay, right, right. Okay.
learned
I definitely understand that though.
it.
No, I definitely understand that. Yeah. I've heard people say, yeah, um, leading is with the whole body. I just, I've definitely heard that before. I, I want to ask you this though. I don't. Maybe someone out there might be confused. How do you, lock in? Put your shoulder blades down and everything. Um, doing all that, focusing on all of that, but as well as still not coming off as tense and forcing stuff. And how do you do that?
So the easiest thing is, I think when most people come off feeling that way or looking a little stiff, usually means that you're focusing on way too many things at one time.
Okay.
So like when you're at home and you're practicing, that's the time for you to be like, oh man, my feet aren't turned out, my lats aren't anchored, my shoulders aren't back, oh, I'm falling forward, like, oh, I'm not closing my feet, because that's practice time. But another part of practice time is social dancing.
Of
So, like,
course.
when you go out, pick one thing. That's it. Don't pick 10. So today I'm like, all right, I've been really lazy. This is actually an actual thought in my mind. I'm like, oh man, I've been really lazy in closing my feet in my basic because I see my videos and I'm like, ah.
Best
I'm
way
like,
to
oh,
learn.
I'll go out and I'll be like, all right, tonight when I go out, I'm going to focus just on closing my feet, on actually closing them, not just waddling around like a duck. That's like my one thing, you know? And then maybe the next time I go out, I'm like, all right, I haven't really been doing my hip press on the tap, so like I'm gonna focus on that. And then maybe
Mm,
the next time I go out, I'm like, you know what? Like I feel like I'm falling forward a lot. And this time I'm gonna make sure that every time I do my basic, I'm standing up straight and that like my lats are down. And that's like my one thing for that night. So you'll be a lot more successful if you pick one thing per night to practice because it becomes easy because you can still do your patterns and you can do all this stuff, but you're picking one technical aspect to work,
yeah.
and then you're getting a lot of practice with different leads and different follows,
Yes.
but keeping your technique on this one thing. And
Mm,
then it's easier to focus and it's more fun, especially if your thing that you're focusing on is the basic step, like the actual just basic. That's a lot to work on, just period. Pick one thing from it and then you can still have fun, but you're still getting better.
okay, I definitely understand that. Yeah. So, I guess practicing with an intent, a focus instead of just doing everything willy nilly or
Like
something.
dance is I feel like sometimes people think dance is finite and it's not. Dance changes every single day. Technique changes every single day. Trends change every day. So dance is a forever, lifelong thing. So like you can never practice too much. You can never practice your basic enough because you might love your basic today and a week from today you'll do it and you'll be like, oh man, that's garbage. Like
Mm,
if you look at pro ballroom dancers before their competition starts, they usually leave the floor open, and all you see are these like big time famous ballroom dancers doing their basics up and down the floor. They're warming up their legs, they're warming up their bodies, they're like
okay.
ready to start. They're just Roomba walk, cha cha lock, side step, Cuban break, or just cucaracha, figure eights. They just do these like very similar basic, they seem like they're just basic movements. But when you actually watch them dance, the amount of times that they do all these things in some fashion, it's big. So like, just keep practicing. Like you really are never done.
Mm. I'm curious. I'm curious to know. Speaking on your background in ballroom, how how do you think that has affected your bachata? Has that helped you or maybe hindered you in any way? I'm curious.
I think it's definitely helped me in the
Okay.
beginning. It was a hurdle because the technique is very different as far as hip motion and like how we step. My style is definitely a more of a hybrid, so I actually use my ballroom training and I put it into my bachata styling
Okay. Okay.
and my bachata technique. So like mine's is a little bit different, but in the beginning for sure, I was like, yo, like my hips they just don't work this way anymore. Like I don't understand what's happening here. And it's the same thing, my coach, I tried to show him once and he was like, listen, it's like my hips don't work that way. And I didn't understand that, but it was like it's completely different. And it really requires you to focus your brain and accept and practice equally different techniques for different dances. So it's like, oh, I'm doing bachata. Like, okay, it's this part of my brain, and I need to do this with my body. And oh, I'm doing my ballroom. This is this side of the brain. I need to focus on that. But ultimately, I think it's helped me a lot. I created my own style that works very well for me. I found that I can lead personally. I can lead a lot of people to do a lot of things comfortably, without
Right.
hurting them and being very, very clear. And a lot of it is really just based on my specific coach and how he leads and how clear he is with everything.
Okay, I definitely understand. I definitely do. So I wanna get back to your story, your journey. So you told me you're competing, and you're focusing on ballroom, then you transition into bachata. I'm curious, what happens in 2012 that makes you want to start Ferocity?
So it was a lot of things. Like between 2010 and 2012, we actually bought that studio and lost it all within like a year and a half. It was like
Okay.
there was some zoning problems that we didn't know about, and we ended up fighting it out with like the county for like a year and a half until ultimately we had to leave.
Oh,
So for me,
wow.
it's like a really dark period because I gave up everything to be in the studio. Like I wasn't taking a salary, I was working 80 hours a week, and
Oh my
like
goodness.
I graduated and stuff, but I wasn't making any money. Like I took a hit for the whole time just
Yeah,
to work towards the future. And then when that came like crashing down, I was like in a really bad spot.
of
I was
course.
and one day I had ballroom and the next day it was gone. And so I was like super sad. So I only had that group that I was helping with. And so that's when I kind of transitioned to doing a lot more of that. And by the time we got to 2012, it was just like my friend and I had different visions, and he had different opportunities that were coming up for him. And I told him, I was like, listen, like, I was like, I really want to do something great. And I really want to do something big. But if we don't have the same vision, like, I just want you to know that I'm going to do it. And like in May, like me doing it was literally like, oh, I picked this name and it's created. And like, that was all it meant. I wasn't doing anything. I didn't have like any dancers or a routine. I didn't even know if I could do choreo because I always saw myself as just helping, like, oh, I'm just helping. I don't actually do anything. I'm just helping with these little like details and stuff. So I never knew that. I didn't know if I could choreograph. I didn't know if I could actually teach the lead part. I had a lot of self doubt, but I knew
Mm.
that I wanted to dance and I wanted to continue to perform, but I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere else. So I had to create a place for me.
Yeah.
What I told, I was like, if it's only me, then whatever, I'll be happy if it ends up just being me. And so then when we decided to just go ahead and like he was gonna work on his own thing, and I already had my little name that I had picked out. So that was really it. I felt I wanted more.
Mhm.
I wanted something very specific in our old ballroom studio when we took over it because I worked at that studio and then I bought it. So I saw what it was like before and then what it was like during.
Mhm.
And we really turned that studio into a family. Like people would come in, I knew their name, they knew the teachers. Like it wasn't like it was structured, but like you felt like you were coming home. Like
Oh.
it up, they would clean the studio, like they just felt a responsibility. They just felt like this was their place. And that feeling, that community feeling, I was like, I want that. I was like, that's why it hurts so bad to lose it. It wasn't losing the studio, it was losing that community. I
Mm.
felt like I failed all these people by getting their home like shut down basically. And I was like, that's so important, and it's something that a lot of people don't realize that they want or need until they get it.
Uh, I'm curious. Tell me, can you go in depth? Like, what happened? You said it was some zoning laws, so the city just shut down that whole building.
Yeah, so like that specific place where we were at had always been a dance studio for like 20 years. Like various different ones obviously went through different ownerships. We were like the fifth or sixth owners in line. Like it literally had been a big dance studio forever. And I told you the salsa parties and stuff, that was before us. That was already happening. So we get there, and apparently I think someone just started calling on us. But I mean, we had like big group classes, like 50 people group classes, but just group classes, we literally only did ballroom. But zoning started showing up, and because of like I guess that our zoning for that warehouse or whatever, the law was that it was everything was based on parking, and the parking thing agreement was from 1975 or something, and it said that that unit only had two parking spots to it. So but it was shared parking because we were the only business open at night, which gave it like over 60 parking spots. But they based everything on the study, and based on the study, even though the studio was 4,300 square feet big, we could only have five students and one teacher at any time.
So yeah, so you had too many people in the actual building. I guess it was a safety reason or something.
Well, no, because the fire marshal gave us 50 people, but the zoning was
Ah,
different. It was only zoned
okay.
for five.
Oh my goodness, that's wild.
Yeah, and with a rent of almost $10,000 a month, that was not gonna happen.
No, of course not.
So like,
Oh my
we
goodness.
we tried to like work with the county, and we like met various times with the zoning officials, but we still had to run the business because no one
Yeah,
care that there's zoning issues.
exactly right.
So we fought as much as we could, and then they ultimately came in during one of like our hustle parties, and they threatened to sue us. So we had to shut down within a couple days.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's very tragic.
Yeah, it was hard.
So that is very tough. So were you a full time instructor at that time? Did you have a day job or?
I didn't have a day job, so I wasn't an instructor. I was the manager of the studio.
Okay. So you went to school for graphic design, went straight into dancing.
Yep.
Shut up.
I was like, I still got a degree though.
I know your parents had before you. I definitely understand that. um, so unfortunately, sadly, they shut down, or you have to, I guess, really move out of that building.
Yeah.
What happens after? You said create Ferocity. Is it just an idea at that point, and then
Well, it was, yeah, when that happened, Ferocity was nothing in my mind at all. Like I was still helping with that one team, and this happened in like 2011. So I didn't create Ferocity until 2012. And it was just like we were like homeless. Like we tried to keep as many of the classes as we could by running them in different places and stuff, but it wasn't the same.
it's
Because
not.
that community was already broken. It was just gone. And then like when our specific team started kind of like fragmenting as well, for me I was like, oh my god, like I was like, I want this. I was like, for me this is super important. And I was like, and I feel like I can do that. Like I can bring people together. Like I need to do it. I was like, I need to do like something like myself.
Mm, I definitely understand. So tell me about was it May 2012? What happens? You say you
Created
start
that name.
Ferocity. Yeah. And that's what I mean. See, you create the name, and do you start looking for dance team members? Are you looking for a
So
building?
So because I was still involved with that other team, I said that the one thing I would never do is I would never scout dancers, which actually I don't do. I
Uh-huh.
still don't do that. Like I don't if I go out social dancing, I literally am just there to social dance and have a
Okay.
good time. Like I don't
Yeah.
look for people. So for me, I was like I was in my head, I was like, all right, it's just gonna be me because if I'm not gonna hold auditions and I'm not gonna scout people, then no one's gonna find me.
All right.
And I also like have always really wanted to have people that wanted to be in it for the long term. And I've always felt like if people come to you, if they take that initiative to like find out how to join you and come to you, and they're gonna stay.
Yeah.
um and so, but I didn't want anyone to think that I was just like, trying to like take people. I never wanted to like have that kind of around me. So I was always just ready for it to be me, but my best friend at the time ended up being the first one to join, and so we started with like a duo piece with both of
Okay.
us.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a couple months later, some girls found us because wherever we would practice, there would be girls kind of like seeing us. So a couple of girls asked to join. So then I did a ladies piece. And then a couple of months later, our team had been gone for a few months already. Some of my guys, my leads, found us, and they were like, "What the fuck? Like, what? How can you like not tell us that you're doing?" And I was like, "I'm sorry." And so then we did a couples piece. So I did
Nice.
choreographies just based on who was around and what we were doing at that moment, and that's really it. I mean, especially once the guys came around, like it started feeling like a little family again.
Okay. Did you I guess at that time did you have to get a day job?
Oh yeah, yeah. Once the studio closed
Right.
to go, and I was working. I used to work at car dealerships for 10 years before I quit
Okay.
that. I went right back, so I ended up, all in all, I did 15 years in car dealerships.
Oh
Working
wow.
receptionist or a cashier. You know, the struggle, the hard
I
life.
believe it. Yeah.
Just
I
answering
definitely.
phones, whatever. I basically like I just wanted to do whatever I needed to pay the bills so that I could dance at night.
Mm, I definitely understand. You're very dedicated to this. Tell me about that beginning stage with Ferocity. What was that? You told me how you slowly built memories up, but tell me about that beginner stage of it, the early stage.
It was probably the hardest. I have always felt uncomfortable calling myself a professional, and I didn't actually call myself a pro until I was forced to in 2016, which I'd already had Ferocity for 3 years. But because my
Mm.
student wanted to do a pro am with me, and I was like, oh man, like I have to register as a pro. Like, man,
Oh.
I was like, pro, like, no, in ballroom, like a professional, it's such a highly regarded and highly respected position to be
I
a
believe it.
professional dancer, like professional dance instructor. And amateurs stay amateur really long, like a really long time. And some amateurs won't go pro unless they win something. And so that can be like 10 years. You can be an amateur for like 10 plus years before you even go into thinking about teaching. And so I came from that mindset. I was just like, oh man, like for me, like that first like 2 years, they really were like, for me it was like blind trust for my students, like really, like especially the people that came on right away, like they had no choreography of mine to have ever seen before. I didn't even know if I could choreograph. I was like super nervous. I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. Like I'm psychotic. Like I can't believe like that. Like my best friend, at least, I was like, well, she's crazy too, so that's fine. But like um I call that really, like, for me, those were the years that kind of healed me from losing my first studio. Because
Okay.
I really had to fight some demons. I didn't know if I wanted to dance anymore. I didn't know if I wanted to have a studio anymore. And like, but after we did Ferocity for a year, we outgrew just renting. And
Oh,
I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, I don't know if emotionally I can get another studio, because that was really hard.
I
But my
believe it.
students, they were so invested and they believed in me. Like it was never about my dancing. It was always about me as a person, and that
Mm.
I cared about their dreams, and that I really wanted us to do things together. And for them that was enough. And like they really, like they got me through those first couple of years.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really good to hear. Um, so I guess I want to find out. I guess at what point were you able to or convinced to go all in with this with Ferocity, this dance studio?
Oh, I still have a day job.
Okay, okay, sure enough.
Yeah, so it's just I did do it for a few months before my dad passed away without any other day job.
Mm.
But once my dad passed away, everything changed, and so I have to take care of my mom and stuff, and
Okay.
I now take his place. So for me, you know, I have two big responsibilities, which is my home
Right.
and my studio. So for me,
Okay.
you know, I work for the as a government contractor in the daytime, and then completely different life at night and on the weekends.
I definitely understand that. So let me ask you this then. You know, uh, tell me what are maybe what is maybe your favorite thing about running a dance studio, and maybe your least favorite thing, maybe the hardest part about it.
My favorite thing for sure is all the people.
Okay.
So like I've always said like whoever wants to be family can be.
Hey.
That's all you. That's really all you need to want is to want to belong somewhere, and as long as you're able to accept people from all walks of life, regardless of what they're about, then you have a place in Ferocity. And I literally get some of the most amazing human beings in that studio. I mean, just amazing people, kind, loving.
That's awesome.
You know, some of them are just scared to be themselves, and then you know to see them gain that strength. You know, some of them to come out to their families. You know, just from the strength that they pull to come out to us first, to tell us things first, to to trust in the company itself as a family. It's really amazing to watch people thrive in that environment because you can tell that they feel safe. They feel safe to be who they are, and sometimes we don't feel like we can be that person all the time, but they come into the studio and they know that whoever they are in all their glory, like that's who they get to be from the minute
Hmm.
they come in to the minute they leave, and that's like the best part ever. um,
Okay.
the least favorite part, I would probably say it's kind of like a catch 22 because I love all the time that I have in the studio, but I have no time. So like i
Busy.
I work, 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and then
Mm.
and I see my dog for a little bit and then I have to go to the studio. And I never used to mind that until my dad passed away. And I think
Okay.
the minute my dad got sick, I was filled with so much guilt about how much time I did not spend at home, like with
Okay.
my family. And what ended up being like my last couple of months with my dad, I felt that guilt a lot. And like as the years have passed since then, I'm trying to build towards like a better balance of like being at the studio and dancing, but also having some time like just for my personal life to actually just, be with my dogs or be with my mom or just, enjoy doing nothing for like a little
Mm.
bit. So
Okay.
that's the hardest part too though.
I definitely understand that. I definitely do. I I wanna. I feel like there's no perfect answer for this, but how can I ask you this? Is there is there ever like a true balance, between work and life? How could you? Is there any advice maybe you can give to finding that perfect balance? It's probably just person to person, right?
Yeah, I think ultimately you have to prioritize. So that's one thing I did when I was young, when I told you that I like changed my whole life around. You know, obviously some things have to fall off if you're at somewhere practicing something 40 hours a week. So
Right,
like
right,
I
right.
decided pretty early on that like I'm not dating, and I was like I made these decisions a long time ago. I was like, all right, like I can't sustain like a dating life if I'm like here at the studio all the time, but this is what makes me happy. So like a long time ago, I was like, all right, this is what I want. And I was like, and I want to travel one day. And like, so I knew from a while ago, I was like, these are my priorities. But I think
Mm,
that every couple, maybe like twice a year, everyone needs to just kind of like put your priorities out and make sure that the life you're leading lines up with your priorities. So if your
mm.
priority is family, but you barely talk to them or you barely see them, then your schedule is not lining up with your priority.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, like, you have to just make sure that whatever your goals are, your life is ultimately leading you there. And
Mm.
if it's not, you need to shuffle around.
Okay, I definitely understand that. I definitely do. I'm curious to know, at this point in your career in your life, how how would you define success for Ferocity, or maybe what would success be for you?
I mean, I think I've always felt successful just with the fact that anyone wants to dance with me.
Okay, shut up.
Like they can choose anybody. They
Mm.
can choose anybody in the whole world to take
Hey,
classes.
sure enough, sure enough.
For me, just the fact that one person wants to dance with me, let alone 5, 10, 15, or whatever. Like that to me feels like success. That means that like the hard work that I've done, and no matter how much I may doubt myself, that there's people out there that actually believe in what I do and like what I do and want to try to be a part of it. So for me, that's success. Like I've never been one to, rule success based on like what you win or what money you make. Like it's cool if that works out. But for me, it's just like, man, like when people like love you and they love what you're doing, like nothing else feels better than that.
Okay, I definitely understand that. So let me ask you, is the ultimate goal, to still go full time with Rossi,
Yeah,
have that be your
I
full
would
time?
ideally, yeah, I would love to not have to work a day job and
Hey,
be
hey.
able to like sustain my life as I need it to be by just doing the dancing.
Mm,
That would be like obviously the dream, but
of
I'm ready to
course.
work. I'm ready to work hard if I have
I
to.
understand. I'm curious. Let me ask you this. Maybe help you game plan for the future. What would you need to do in order to make what would need to happen in order for Ferocity to allow you to be that full time job for you?
Yeah, I think it would just have to be consistent stream of income.
Okay.
When I originally made Ferocity, I didn't want it to be a burden. So I just wanted it to be self sufficient. So I was like, all right, like I priced the dues for the students that I had to be able to cover the rent at the studio.
Okay.
Like, I was like, as long as it pays for itself, then like I won't have to come out of pocket and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
lose my studio again like I did.
Right, 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 right.
And so, if I was to go full time, now you're not talking about it being self sufficient. Now it needs to actually support my
Generating.
family and then itself as well. So,
Right.
I would have to probably create more programs to be consistently bringing in income for that. And so, like things have gotten obviously like better. There's a lot of people in the company, but there's, just a lot of responsibilities that
Of
I have.
course.
So like it's not as easy as it might seem sometimes, but if it's meant to be, it'll be, and if not, then I'll keep working
Hey.
till it does.
Yeah. I mean that shows I think that really just shows, how much you love it though, Um no matter I guess how tough it may be, you're still willing to put the work in for it.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that. Yeah. I want to ask you two more questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Sure.
But for maybe someone else who wants to, start up a dance studio of their own, um, what are maybe some things that you know now that you wish you had known when you first started this endeavor?
Yeah. So you need to learn to budget.
Okay.
Need to have some like if you're a dreamer, I'm a dreamer. You need to have somebody that's not a dreamer. You need a realist. You need a realist next to you to be like, listen, like X, Y, and Z that you're doing is gonna bite you in the butt if you don't do one, two, and three.
Okay.
Because dreamers, like we go off our heart. So that's why I made the studio. Like I sold my car and like used the money for my car to like make the studio, and then I priced everything. But what happens if two people can't pay that month? Now
Right.
and now and I wasn't making that much money. I was making like $12 an hour, so like that's a huge hit off of
Yeah.
like, and then it's a snowball effect, right? Like what if somebody else can't pay the next month? Now you keep going and going and going, and having like someone who's just a little bit more like, all right, I believe in you and what you're doing, but you need to be a little bit like on paper, we need to keep you like in track. And that's definitely not something that I had. So I learned the hard way a lot on a lot of
Okay.
but yeah, so like I'm still a dreamer, but I've definitely learned to be a lot more business oriented in certain
Mm,
things because if you lose something or something fails, it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone that's with you.
of course, of
And so
course.
it's a big responsibility. And I think that's just a really good thing to have. Most people I feel like that want to open dance studios are just like me, like they love it, they want to make this a thing that they do all the time, but it's a lot of work because there's actually a lot of studios around, and that means that people have options, and you
Exactly.
have to make sure that you don't have a really high rent, and you need to make sure that you understand what makes you different and that you're clear with your mission statement and that you offer what is missing in your scene. Otherwise, you're just adding like competition. Even if
Hmm.
you don't see it that way, like it ends up becoming this way.
No, I definitely understand this. Yeah, so yeah, I guess finding someone who may can complement the thing that you need, you know.
Yeah, and it could be like a friend, or maybe you can hire someone like
Right, right, right.
just someone that's whose sole job at that moment is just to keep you in like out of the red.
I understand that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely understand that. And I guess really I want to ask you this, this one last question, maybe something that can, be a benefit to, aspiring dancers. Could you give me one tip that could make anyone a better dancer immediately?
Oh man, that's hard. I would say invest in a private lesson,
Okay.
even if it's just one. I know they're expensive, and most of the time, people are like, "Oh, like I can't sustain that." I'm just saying, in one,
Mm,
take one lesson. Ask them for a couple of things you can do better, because 60 minutes with one person who's only looking at you,
right, right, right.
respect, who you like, who you admire, telling you like, okay, this, and that, that'll give you like months of stuff to work on. If
Yeah.
and that instantly will get better because number one, anytime you take a class, you're going to get better no matter what, whether it's your brain that you're sharpening up or your body. But a private lesson, like that one-on-one instruction, it makes a difference having someone to only focus on you, and having you feel that like that attention, that they actually care, that they really want you to get better, but also like the hands-on instruction, like having, feel my lats, this is what I need, like feel this posture, look at what it does, like look at how your sternum pulls up, look at how much bigger you look, like look at how your hips should move naturally, and any like little questions that you might have that you can fit in that 60 minutes, like you can get so much information, and it's investing into your future.
Yeah, of
Maybe it's
course.
a little expensive, but if you can only afford one every 6 months, okay, one every 6 months, but like choose yourself.
I definitely understand that, and that makes a lot of sense. Private lessons are probably what maybe the quickest way to learn, or maybe I don't know. Would you agree with that? Maybe.
I mean, I think it's a more direct way to learn
Okay, direct.
because
Okay, sure enough.
everything is tailored to you.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Though.
I
Yeah,
told you, yeah, dancing is there's no quick way to do it.
yeah.
It's
Okay, sure
if
enough.
you like to dance, you're in it for the long haul.
Okay, sure enough. I understand that. I really want to thank you, Kat, for taking time out today to talk to me. I really enjoyed this conversation with
Oh,
you.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Real quick, tell me what are some of the upcoming events that you have going on in your life?
So this year we only have like one main event that we're hosting. So it's our Masters of Bachata Takeover event. It's happening the weekend before Virginia Beach.
Oh,
And so I've always believed that like if you like to dance bachata, you should be able to dance all bachata. If you want to learn to be a better dancer, you should be able to take classes in any style. So we only have one ballroom. So all the classes are in one,
eh, okay,
the socials in one room. So like people come in and maybe you don't know everybody. By the second day, everyone knows each other. By the time
okay,
you leave, it just feels like you were in a reunion. But like everyone does everything. They take the traditional classes, they take the fusion classes, they do the central classes, and they all dance together the whole weekend.
okay. That's awesome. That's right. And when is that? Did you say what's the dates?
It's the weekend right before. I think it's November 22nd to 24th.
Okay, okay.
Weekend right before Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and will that be in Vienna as well? Vienna, Virginia, or
Virginia Beach.
okay, it's me, Virginia Beach. Okay, I get you. Okay, sure enough, sure enough. That sounds awesome. And I guess last question. How can people get in contact with you? How can they reach out to you?
So I'm on Facebook, Ferocity Dance Company. Also on YouTube, same Ferocity Dance Company. I'm on Instagram as Ferocity Dance, and then our website, ferocitydance.com.
Sure enough, simple as that. So, like I said, Kat, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this.
No, thank you. I'm really honored. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
hey, no doubt, no doubt. See ya, Kat. Thank you so much. Please enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
Thank you too. Bye.
Yeah. All right, Kat.
I want a toy truck. What? But Santa Claus. Oh, hold on one second, Santa Claus. Hold be right back. Hey, if you could leave a like and subscribe for the show, that would be amazing. Let's get back to the episode.